Let's get some audio rolling so you guys can hear me. By the way, did I mention I do not like the Windows update? It is annoying me. And we have Sparky today.
Hello all.
I'm just checking the levels and making sure the audio's coming through. One of these fine moments I will figure out what the hell Windows just did to my computer and I'll fix it. How is everybody in the chat today? We got Malevolent Rider and Darkside Molyneux, the Angry Amish Hitman, the Adam K, Skip the Bots, and that's everybody. Sparky just got his wrench for coming on the show. To the Angry Irish Hitman, if you want your wrench, you must be a guest. And that goes for anybody. That's how you earn your wrench these days, I suppose is the way I'm doing it. And we have a game board somewhere, if I can get my settings to coalesce in the right way here. Here we go. Welcome to the Great Debate. Oh, you can hear my board. Cool. All right. I guess you can hear the audio settings. So my computer's not all messed up, just parts of it. Mostly the OBS, I guess. I'm not sure. But as everybody knows, there's 18 topics on the board. One of them is in its second day of conception. We'll see how it goes. It's up to the guest to choose these topics, and let's see where the conversation goes from there. And Malevolent Rider will be so happy as to let me know in the chat when my time is up. Though we can choose to ignore him. Shh.
Okay, so let's start with technology first. How's that?
Technology. You're into technology. Could humans ever go back to living without technology we have developed? Or is there no going back? That's not supposed to say not.
Well, there might be a point where we have to. It just depends on, how everything in the world goes. You never know. We might end up living in the age of Fallout.
We might, and that wouldn't be by choice or anything. But it just seems like once we develop the technology that we begin to use frequently, cars developed, overemphasized. We couldn't live without cars right now. Planes developed, mass-produced and made to do as much as they can. We almost can't live without planes right now. Phones, internet, smartphones, computers, stupid things like a washer and dryer. Once certain technologies are invented, it's really hard to go back.
Basic tools.
Yeah, I couldn't live without wrenches and pliers. Maybe a Phillips and flat. It's a weird thought to think of what would happen if we to a species came to the conclusion that the internet is bad. We'll use the internet as a good example, just because. But if we came to the conclusion that the internet is bad and that we have to kill it down and come up with another mode or work on it, could we go back once we've reached that point where it's there?
Well, I think that really depends on the person and their ability to adapt. In the end, that's what's got to come down to, is being able to adapt to the change.
I suppose on an individual level, each person is only capable of what they're willing to put themselves to. So could I live without the internet? Yeah. Would I want to? No, probably not, because it gives me something to do. If I lived without other things, yeah, I'd have my day more occupied with completing tasks, because the technology that would have made those tasks quicker and easier and given me more things is no longer there.
Well, I mean, that's basically how I make my living because I'm a truck mechanic. So
And once
I
new technology comes out, you can't, like, you still do the old stuff, but once the old stuff kind of fades away, you almost don't see it anymore.
it depends. You got some people out there try to resurrect the old stuff.
Yeah, that fair and very true, but it's far and fewer between. It's not a common thing. People aren't going out there right now saying, "All right, houses have been a very bad idea. We're gonna canvas some teepees and we're all gonna live outside."
Well, you can always
Or
do what EA did and just drop it.
did what? Who did?
No, it's not technology, but Star Wars Battlefront.
Oh,
EA basically just dropped it. So I guess you could always do that.
yeah. I've seen I've seen shows and I've seen people that do like survival style or planning for the inevitability that there will be a catastrophic outcome and we'll lose power or we'll lose supplies or we'll lose transportation or something will happen and people will be fighting for what they need. And why would we do that to ourselves on purpose? Why would we go back? Even other countries to think about this, why would they sacrifice what they've gained to go backwards? Why would they push that on anything? Because the gains benefit everybody. Once, they benefit everybody who would be capable of making the decision to mass destroy or take us back.
Yeah, you got some people just want to watch the world burn, and if it means wiping out technology to put humans back 100 years, there's some people that would do it.
Yeah, there are. Last 10 seconds, and this is going to go over time. There was a video released from a college debate where a young girl debated a member of the audience over how important technology was and how the girl's argument was we should go back to living off of the land and living with the land so that we can understand and have more of a capability with the land. But her whole argument and notes were written out on a tablet. Not to mention some of what she was saying was crazy. But she had a handheld wireless tablet, not a notepad, a tablet in her hand with notes. So how do you argue to go backwards if you're not going to go backwards? Where's your piece of paper and a pencil? In fact, where's your rocks? How far back do you want to go? What are you arguing for?
Yeah, was she talking into a microphone or yelling?
She was in a classroom setting. It might make it easier. It was a black class. It's probably from a large city area. Stereotyping as I do. There we go. And she was arguing that people in cultures had the ability to call lightning and elements and things because they were more in connect with nature, and that we should abolish technology and go back to that type of living. And then she picks up her tablet and looks back at her notes as a member of the audience starts to say, "That's ridiculous, that's crazy, people don't control lightning." And the teacher goes, sorry, we have to accept all ideas here. And I lost it laughing. I was going to do a video, but I didn't. It was last year, it was semi-viral. It was a great video.
Wow.
So, what are we going to do next? Because that was definitely interesting.
Oh, I say let the audience pick next.
Oh, no. This is on you. The audience gets to pick all the time.
Oh, okay.
Ask Malevolent Rider. He only likes to pick once for every show. So he might throw his input in there if you have a hard time choosing. Because so many options, it's hard. Like, do you want burritos or tacos? Or do you want hamburgers? Or would you like a steak? Potatoes? Would you like gravy with that? What are we choosing this time?
Yeah. Well, he says he only has one job, so I guess transportation.
Transportation. That one's been a while. I don't even. There it is. Is the future of transportation dependent on newer advanced computer learning?
I'd say yes on that one.
And this is
And
partially your
yes,
field, so
yes, it really is. And it's not so much on just like making vehicles better. Um, Technology helps with that a lot, but a lot of things like keeping up with different regulations. Um, like in the trucking field. Working at Peterbilt, we see it all the time. Government just passed a new mandate to have electronic logs in every truck now. So at all times, the driver is monitored, tracked, mileage, speed, brake times, everything. Officer pulls them over, he can give them the little data box. It's basically like a black box recorder now. You got those, and then EPA regulations for emissions control. And most of these vehicles have like 2 or 3 computers just dedicated for emissions control.
yeah, especially if you're out west towards California, then I believe if you drive through or do any transportation in California, you got to be smog approved.
Yep.
Which
If you
in some
don't, you
cases
get
is the
a really hefty
strictest.
fine.
It is the
Yep.
strictest in California.
Yep. Actually, all vehicles built now have to meet California emissions. It doesn't matter if you're driving in New York, Chicago, Texas, or anywhere. The EPA's mandated vehicle must approve California emissions.
Oh no, we're abiding by California's rules.
They're the ones that set the guidelines.
Oh man.
And the reason why they do that is because the EPA in the automotive field, how do I put it? They stick to the stringent rules to make sure that the vehicles are covered all over the place. Because, like with semis, they go all over the country.
Yeah.
Why only make your truck that can only go in certain parts of the country and not in the other parts of the country? You got companies that buy these trucks and they start getting hefty fines. They're going to go back on the manufacturer.
So, would you say that the technology will eventually be there that we won't be driving the trucks? Because this has been looked at lately. Why?
Technology's there.
Once we can read how the driver drives, there's almost no point in having the driver except just as like to monitor the system.
Pretty much, if you look at Tesla's system that they have now, it's pretty much self-automated. The driver's got to be there to be able to take control. It's not a fully drivable car, but it can. It still relies on humans to be able to take control in case of emergencies or something happens. They actually have this technology now for, like with Peterbilt. They've got a system. It's called "Follow Me, Follow You," and way that works is it works off of a convoy basis. You got one human driver driving a semi, and you have a tag-along semi that follows right behind it, and it does everything that the front truck does, adjusted to account for distance. It's not an implemented system yet, but it's coming.
Does anybody remember the Doctor Who episode? What was it called? The something Vos or something that they added to the cars that was supposed to help control the emissions and the driving to make it safer so that there was fewer accidents and so that it was cleaner emissions. And I forget exactly what it was called. But in the end, it came down to what Data Laceland just said. Now the CIA can drive you into the trees. Atmos. The Atmos. And what was happening was the systems were being taken over, locking down the vehicles and driving someone off a pier. And it almost seems like the more control that is taken, the less freedom that we're going to have to drive the vehicles. So putting in a box that tells the government or the police that this truck driver was doing 70 in a 65 zone, but you caught him doing 67, and you wanted to check. That's, granted, that's industrial, it's corporate, Do I think drivers should be going over the speed? No, because I've seen stupid amounts of destruction with drivers going over the speed, just local to me. But then that gets inherently put on other drivers also, and then other drivers are subject to randomly having their speed checked. Well, what if you went 66 miles an hour in a 65 zone to pass somebody? Do you then automatically get a ticket for going 1 mile over? You know what I mean? The more it aids, the more it also kind of takes some of our freedom away.
Yes and no. They do some leniency for that. They understand that you're not gonna be able to keep exactly to the speed limit, but the stuff they really look at is like for drivers, semi drivers, they monitor your time. Because back in the day, running two law books that way you can drive further, drive longer, get more money. They're trying to get away from that.
There's a few conditions that you worry about when you're driving long hauls, and I can say I didn't drive. I'm not CDL or anything, but I've driven box trucks. There's road fatigue, which you get any vehicle. Any vehicle will give you road fatigue, where you just kind of, it's not quite sleeping, but you're not quite awake. You just zone into what you're doing to the point where you just stop doing it.
You get too comfortable.
Yeah, and I felt myself do this. It almost feels like you're going to sleep sometimes. Just you sit in one spot for so long, staring at a straight road with your foot or something on the pedal, and you don't move a lot, and all of a sudden you just kind of semi go into a light lethargic mode until you realize something changed, and then you flash awake, and that usually makes you jolt. We'll do that in a tractor trailer. I've seen them do that in a tractor trailer. You watch the trailer tip to the right, tip to the left, they try to line it back up, and then you see them doing it a few minutes later. I understand what all this is for, but at the same time, I want to bring up the fact that you do lose a little bit of freedom in there. It's for safety, it's for diligence, but the freedom is also a loss. And then you just become a passenger, and then the CIA can drive you off a bridge. So, on that happy note, what should we do next?
Let's talk about... Well, we've already talked a little bit on it. On the first question, let's talk about the internet.
The internet. I do have to admit, sometimes my questions kind of lean into each other because it's a train of thought or whatever goes on in my head at the time. The internet. Snap. The internet is gone. How do we proceed at this point without the internet?
You're dead accurate on that one.
So let's put it right into what we were just talking about, the quote-unquote Atmos system or intelligent driving that relies on connecting to a wireless network to transfer information and knowledge back and forth. It can run independently for so long, but then it can't run because it can't update or detect other information that should be being fed to it. Same thing with us. I can't check my bank account. Now I have to go to my bank. That takes me more time. I can't log on and talk to friends, so now I got to go down to the bar and find new friends. I can't log online to watch TV. I've got to go find one of those few video stores that still sells videos I can rent because I want something to do.
Yeah, Dan, that's become a big cornerstone of today's age, and without it, it'll be chaos. At least for a while.
No, that's not to say the world would be, I think
it's
only
not
about 60 what percent. It's between 60 and 70% of the world actually has internet access, and it's increasing daily with all the new advancements that we're making and putting remote wireless signals in countries that never had it before. We've been launching enormous amounts of satellites to try and increase the range of these signals. We've been increasing the efficiency of the broadcast and the reception of these Wi-Fi signals. The internet is spreading.
I was going to say, look at how long it's been in conception. Really, it got started around the late 80s, mid-90s.
When the internet did, as we know it. It actually got started in the early... Data help me here. Wasn't like 53 the internet started as a conceptual communication device for the military? It was put into use in 57 or 58. And something like that. It was after World War II.
Yeah, I'm talking about for like public use when it started becoming.
Yeah.
It's one thing for the military to have it. It's another thing to have the public have it.
I think civilian and corporate access was given in the late 70s, somewhere around somewhere around the space race or something. It was used to try and get people to put more information towards what we were doing and collect other scientists being able to collaborate on the project. And then Gates was one of the people who learned that you needed to find a way to interact better with people so that it wasn't just communicating code. And then it just kept going from there.
Yep. And just look at the advancements from, well, like I said, back the 80s and 90s to now. I remember having the old 56K modem you dial into.
56. I remember the 26.5 or 26.78 or whatever. What the fuck was it? I remember the first connection was like 14,400, and then it went to like 26 or 27.8 or whatever it was. It'd be iffy depending on who you connect to, whether it was AOL or what was the other funky one, CNET or something net. And then it went to 56. And then you could either get the high-speed phone line, which I want to say was like 1 point something K is what they were advertising. And all of a sudden that just skipped over and went into 10 baud or whatever it was that started out the huge craze.
Mm-hmm.
There's data with the numbers. It was 28. Skynet?
Yeah.
What about Skynet? Hey, you know what? Maybe we'd be better off without the internet. As far as we know right now, and I came into this just as a tangential discussion in yesterday's show, the program Eagle Eye could have been a movie representing a technology that's already there that we know nothing about. Maybe we would be better off without the internet in 5 or 10 years than we realize right now, because it's slowly trying to control us.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's... Well, hell, look at what Microsoft's done to Windows. It now sends telematics back to Microsoft, and they sell that data to people to know exactly what you want, how you want it, to predict what you're going to do next.
Now, I understand commercialization is slight hype, but what about Watson? What about the new updates to Siri and the updates to Google? And the ability to have authentic communication with a not quite artificially intelligent device. You know, this is so cool for some. The advancement is helpful. But with that, stop and think sometimes about the worries that come along with that helpfulness. Is any one of those things can go wrong on you, and in my thought, the less you understand about how that all works, the worse it's going to screw up.
Yeah. I mean, anything.
You're a mechanic.
Anything can turn around and bite you in the ass.
You're a mechanic. If I find a bolt missing from a hole somewhere under the engine and I just turn around and go, oh, there's a hole, I'll stick the bolt in it. And yes, I already kind of know the answer to this. Does that mean I'm necessarily fixing it?
No.
No, because on the side of an engine, there's like 30 extra bolt holes for moving, hoisting, maneuvering, lifting.
Additional accessories, additional hookups for different vehicles.
If I don't know where that bolt goes, what good am I doing putting the bolt back if it's not in the right place? So
it might be designed for removal of something, because there's some parts on the engine, they put bolt holes in there to assist with actually prying the part off when it's pressed on.
Yeah. Well, moving on, as Malevolent Rider likes us to do, we have more topics to cover.
Oh, let's see. How about movies?
Movies. Hopefully I got this one interesting enough. We'll see. We live in an age of spectacular technology, but create movies portraying even more advanced tech. Why not today's tech?
Well, it's because those movies were done about 20 years ago.
No, they weren't. I don't know if anybody else notices this, but if you want to look at it from an aspect of movies, we kind of skipped over what our current technology is to a point, except that we've created aspects of some things we saw in technology. Like, we should be using clear glass tablets that you can see through and pull chips out of, not gray and purple and pink tablets with Apple stickers on the back that one side works. We're supposed to be using smart watches, not phones connected to watches. We're supposed to have glasses that we can press buttons on and see things, but those were scrapped a couple months ago by Google. We were supposed to have shoes, so Nike brought us our self-tying shoes, or whatever they are. I want to know where my drying jacket is. I want to know where my hoverboard is. I want to know where my spaceship is. I want to know where those cool little efficiency apartments where the bed is on the wall and everything's built in and whatnot, and mail gets delivered to you in a chute that comes from miles away instead of by a postman. And I want to know where my triple stack cities are with smogs at the middle level and the undergutters. I want to know where all this shit I saw in sci-fi 20 and 30 years ago is, because we kind of just passed over all of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
And now we're looking at stuff that we don't have yet. Why not say, hey, you know what? We have this. Let's make a cool movie about where we are.
Oh, I honestly want to know how to start with that one.
Right? They did come close to one of the, what was it, Fast and the Furious? Is it Fast and the Furious that drove out the buildings? But that's, again, not quite realistic, and having tons of vehicles being thrown at you by a hacker on the edge of realistic. I mean, come on, you guys could have done a little better. They could have gone more for real, but then you take the spectacular away a little bit, I guess. So maybe that's why.
Well, hell, you won't have your Terminators or your Skynet then.
See, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe we haven't had Terminator or Skynet. And maybe once we realize that we're getting there, that's when Terminator's going to come back and kill us.
Pretty much.
I had a chance to take a pic of the hoverboard from Back to the Future or Time DeLorean. Interesting fact about the DeLorean. The DeLorean was built in 1988 only. There's only one model put out because the creator of the DeLorean got arrested for a cocaine sale. He was using the DeLorean company to launder the money for the cocaine.
Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting fact. The DeLorean couldn't go up to 88 miles an hour.
Yep. It could only do, what was it, 73 max
85.
Was it 85? No,
85 was max on the speedometer.
Oh, so yeah, that's right. They had to custom make this digital speedometer, which, by the way, I want to say they stole from the Buick.
They did that one, but any scene that you see in that movie where it sees the dash panels actually taken from I believe a Toyota.
Was it a Toyota?
Yeah, they filmed it inside of
digital dashes in the 80s. I remember.
It wasn't a digital dash. It had a digital display that he custom made on top of the dash, but it still had the original dash in the vehicle.
Okay. 88 miles per hour because it was made in 1988. Oh, that's a cool thought. The creator was the designer of the Corvette. What do you mean? The creator of the DeLorean was the designer of the Corvette? They used a Porsche engine to get the speed. The old Porsche engines in those smaller cars weren't as good. Just for the record. Also, there's a couple Mercedes lines where they made some shit diesel motors too. Right, Sparky?
Yeah. Oh, God. Technology from back then to now is drastically different. But like you said,
we have some cool shit.
But, I mean, if you look at it, how would you make a movie depicting today's technology? It would just be, I don't know, your average movie, wouldn't it?
I suppose. But it would
because,
keep
I mean,
from living in this dream world that Iron Man's going to come save everybody from something. Yeah,
give the military 10 more years, probably.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't even think they need 10 more years. I don't think, and this is something I say about movies is when you look at the way movies portray what's going to happen to us, it's almost like the fear of some people causes that to not happen. If you know what's going to happen to you if you do something, you're not going to do it. So you're going to make a change. So does society see these movies and go, no, that's cool, but I think we can do it this way instead?
Well,
And
I take that back. I take that back. Look at the new RoboCop and look at prosthetics and cybernetics and look at today. It's not exactly what is in that movie, but prosthetics for people that are missing limbs has come a real long way.
yeah,
And they actually, they have, more dexterity now. They're able to do more intricate things. They have better control over those prosthetics now.
yeah.
So, I mean, some movies do. Some movies do.
And yeah, I guess they do kind of touch on it, but then they over embellish it, and you really don't always have to. We do have some cool shit around that you can just say, check out this cool shit. We're gonna use it in action or portray it in action. But Malevolent says we need to move along, and he's probably right. Even though 1, 2, 3, 4, no, we're doing okay on time. We're doing fine.
Malevolent sounds like a buzzkill.
Malevolent's been on here before. He just likes hitting those topics. Part of the point of the show, and you'll notice the difference between my show and other shows, is that I'll talk about these things, but there's kind of a limit. Partly because there's a question behind it. You can only talk about something that you break down into a small instance so much. So you never know what's going to be talked about next. And to be honest, you never know what's going to be under any one of these topics or which way these topics are going to go.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what's going to happen next? The excitement, Malevolence just sitting there building. Would they get to the next topic already? I want to see what the next topic is.
I imagine Malevolence with a little suit and a watch going, I'm late.
I'm going to have to, coming up soon here, I need to go back and make a list of everybody on. And then I'm going to go through and re-invite anybody who hasn't been on at least once. And then I'm going to go through and try to get new people. I'm going to try and find... I got to watch all of my old shows. There's almost 100 of them. But we need another topic. What do you got? What do you got in mind for us?
Oh, let's do video games.
Video games. Let's do video games. I don't have any new ones. The aftermath of being immersed into a game can sometimes impact your thoughts directly after the game.
Yeah, you can. I mean, after you go through and you play like the Fallout games, you get to thinking, is like, could this actually happen? Or like with Wolfenstein. And it's like, it puts that thought of what if?
Yeah. Also, games are designed, psychologists are used to try and find ways to get people to want to continue playing the game. So, understand that psychology is being used against you when you sit down to do something. People are saying, okay, we want them to continue doing this. The whole aim and goal, we have to have context, some way to force them without them realizing it for them to continue to do something. And when you get up from a video game that you've just immersed yourself in, let's say you sat down and played Call of Duty for 7 hours straight. You got up once to use the bathroom, but you stared at the screen for 7 hours. When you get up and turn corners or make motions, do you ever find yourself sometimes pause and hesitate before you turn the corner and you look around it? You do stupid little things that you don't quite realize you're doing because you got so immersed into the game, you just kind of brought aspects of the game back out with you. When you drive a car and your wife stops and goes, you need to run over to the store real quick to get a gallon of milk, you get in the car and go,
No. I got a better one. My girlfriend was playing Alien Isolation. She sat down and binge played it for about a good 10 hours. And I think I got her with about 10 or 12 good jump scares.
Oh, yeah.
Just not expecting it, just come around the corner. Ah!
Yeah, and you get into a world, And when you immerse yourself into a game, when you truly sit down and play the game, not for like, hey, I got a half an hour to blow, I'm going to set a timer and, you know, run a couple of quick races. When you get into a game and you have to, somebody gives you a call and you got to run out the house, or your wife pesters you and you got to run to the store, or something happened out back and you got to run real quick to help the kids, your mind drags some of what you're doing away from you because you're so immersed in it. You feel like that what's happening in the game is actually happening for you so that you can get that fresh, quick response. And then when you jump out of that game, you sometimes bring a part of what you are doing with you, and you bring some of the thought processes you've been using in the game out of the game with you. So you check corners and you make sure you look around you to make sure nothing's happened. When you hear a noise, you turn real quick to make sure there's nothing behind you. That kind of thing. The on the ready part. Or, again, when driving, if you play a racing game, even with a controller, do you ever notice when you get into a car afterwards, you're always checking your mirrors, you're looking around you, you're looking behind you, you're making sure you're doing the right speed limit, you're checking all your stats and everything. You're doing it more intense, and you kind of catch yourself flashing faster because you were responding quicker playing the game, and then all of a sudden you're in that close environment, and you just realize, oh shit, I feel like I'm still playing the game a little bit.
Yeah, couple VR with that.
Yeah, and I've played a few VR things, and when you take them off and you start walking, you're like, wait a second, hold on, that messed with me. I got to sit down for a minute.
You start questioning what's real and what's fake.
Yeah. Not just that, you start questioning what... This kind of comes into the response segment and the Are Games Good for Kids segment, is not what's real or fake, but what part of you are you taking out and what is the game teaching? Whether you realize it or not, you're being trained to do something by that game. That game set out with a purpose. You played that purpose. You fed into it. You did it repeated times. You have now been trained to play that game. You take that with you. Okay, so does that training affect you outside the game? If a kid plays a shooting game long enough and realizes and then picks up a gun, does that kid sometimes kick into the game mode and go, oh, this is fun. I need to make sure I get as many as possible. Pop, 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 pop. Oh, shit, I can't reload like I can in the game. How do I move faster? And I hate to bring that up as an example, but that is one used against.
Yeah, and it's a good way to look at it, but again, you can't look at it as everything's bunched up and everyone's the same. It depends on the person.
What is it? Rule 34? If you're thinking about it, it probably already exists. Think about that, though. And the other aspect, not to continue to go over time, but I like going over time. You play games and you develop that response, that quick action response to what's happening in the game. Now, if you don't pull the negative side effect of, oh, I got this gun in my hand, it would be awesome to shoot up everybody I see in the building like in the game. If you go with the response time and the acuity to be able to play some of these games at the speed and the agility that they're played, then it's benefiting the person's response and tactility time for not only playing games, but interacting in real-life scenarios.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you can't have one without the other. They weigh together. At least in my mind, they weigh together. But they're very important facts. You take the game out with you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. We got 5 out of the way. Let's try to do at least 1. Probably going to do 2 because we're watching the timer. Or we'll chat for a while. Something will happen.
Oh, let's see. Creator tips.
Creator tips. Cutting your losses. Sometimes you have to give things up and move on.
Yeah. That is true. Not just for like a creator's aspect. That could be put to everyday life at times.
Okay. I perfectly agree, but describe your side for me.
Well, Well, like at my job, sometimes you get, they train us to be able to walk on these engines, these trucks. I train myself at my house to do stuff on my channel on how to solder, how to do component level repairs on boards. There's sometimes there's just some of those problems you can't figure out. And sometimes cutting away from it and moving on, either you'll figure something else out by not walking on it, or someone else might come to that example. Well, not example, but the come to the reason why it's not walking and be able to fix it because they're able to think about it a different way. Sometimes just continuously trying to beat down on something and going to yourself, I'm not going to give up until I get this. Well, eventually you probably could, but at the end, how much headache, how much frustration, how much time are you got waste putting into it if you can't figure it out? I know this could be applied to different things, but that's just one thing that comes up to my mind.
Yeah. And have you ever heard like life coaches? I'm sure if you're under 40, you've probably heard or seen a life coach either in school, in college, talk to one at some point, not personally, but at least generically in a class or a presentation about life coaching or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they always tell you to focus on what you're doing, and that sometimes you just have to realize that a habit or something you're doing is bad and move on.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's some things that you can continuously do, or something you're accustomed to, and it's something that you do on a regular basis. But being able to cut away from it and move on can probably improve or help yourself out more than continuously doing what you've been doing. I mean, there's many examples that you can go off of for this.
Was it Einstein? I'm probably quoting the wrong person, but the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and ending up with the same result.
I believe that's Einstein.
That's what I thought. I'm not quoting it exactly right either, but at some point you have to realize that there is an inevitable end to something. And if you set out with a goal, you have to set out with a this was my statement from the life coach. When you set a goal, it has to be smart, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And when you set that goal, if you don't achieve the goal, you either have to realize that the goal was too complex or that you are not going to complete it. And the point of it making a smart goal is to realize that sometimes if you can't reach your goal, you have to remeasure how to do things. And if you have to learn when to walk away and realize that your capabilities or your experience just don't equip you with something.
Yeah. I mean,
it's really hard to expel what I'm trying to say here. But sometimes you just have to realize that there's no point anymore and that it's good to walk away. It could be for the best. Again, if you have a goal, if you have an achievement and you don't make it, then why continue?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can look at in different aspects. I'll put my YouTube channel up, for example. I don't want to say I have a goal for it. I have a dream for it. I like to. My YouTube channel is my hobby. I don't want to say, I'm going to have like 100,000 subscribers by the end of next year. I know that's an unattainable goal. I dream I would have 100,000 subscribers by next year, but I know that goal is unattainable. But just because it's unattainable doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing YouTube. It's because it's something I like and I do. I guess, how can I put it? What you expect from something it depends on what you expect from.
Well, again, back to SMART: specific, measurable, attainable,
Hmm.
realistic, and timely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
for the most,
don't
I mean,
expect to have 1,000 subscribers tomorrow. I don't expect to have them next week. I don't even expect to have 1,000 subscribers at the end of the year. So my goal can't be 1,000. I'm at 200 and something. My goal is to hit 300. I have my estimated time that it should take me. So my goal says it should take me about that long. If I achieve it in less time, then I've overachieved. If I don't achieve it in that time, then I've done something wrong.
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
You know? Okay, let's try to. We're on 6. We still got time for one more? Oh, one more. I think we'll have to do just one more. What do you say? You got one more in you today, Sparky?
Yeah, I got one more. How about the host picks this one? I picked every other one. I want to see what
I
you
don't
got
pick
there.
from the board. I can sit and talk about
Oh,
any one of
come
these
on.
topics for almost an hour individually, but I don't pick from the board.
Okay, well, since we talked about goals and all that good stuff, let's talk about rewards.
Rewards. A key to retraining or adapting a habit is to reward oneself for accomplished behavior. Is this a good idea?
I would say it would be a good idea, especially if you find yourself as the type of person that is really hard to motivate. Um, you got people out there that will just get up and go through and do it just because either they want to or they have the ambition that they can get up and that they can do it. But there's also other people out there that it's hard to get them motivated. And oh, I know parents do it with kids all the time. And I know some of my friends, especially at work, do it. I've got one in particular. He'll go through and say he has a lawn ticket. Driver wants several things done on a vehicle. He smokes all the time. So he's got set down to once he completes a job or 2 jobs, he'll go out for a cigarette. But he won't go out for a cigarette until he completes those jobs. Not the best example, but that's an example nonetheless.
And that was part of what I was looking at with this question. Yes, it's sort of like the Pavlov's dog theory, where if you ring the bell and then feed the dog starts to associate the ringing of the bell with being fed. If you reward yourselves for the good behavior that you do, you're obviously going to reinforce good behavior. However, we also have this thing consistently set up, which is what I forget how it's referred to as a negative reward. If you do something bad, you get
A punishment.
punished. Yeah, so there's a negative reward system involved in things. So if you need a negative reward system, well, for every cigarette you smoke, you're taking time off your life. And I say this as a smoker. For every job you do, you increase your wealth, which is a positive reward. So to reward yourself with something that is a self-negative reward, and this gets confusing in how I'm saying it, so I'm saying it wrong. If you reinforce a positive action with a potentially negative reward, you're causing the reinforcement for doing something good to be bad. And this is what a lot of people do. Hey, I worked out all week. I did everything I was supposed to. I made it to my cheat day. This is my cheat day. I can have this. Negative reward for a positive accomplishment. And how is this going to portray as life continues, as we keep creating these new negative reward systems for people that don't work?
Yeah, I mean, It depends on what the accomplished behavior you're looking for is. And at the end, it also depends on what the reward for that behavior is.
And again,
It could be, I mean, it's
rewarding yourself for accomplishing a certain task or something can also become a negative in and of itself, because then you're only doing things to achieve a reward.
yeah. You're not doing
See,
it just because you have to or you want to.
Yeah. So if you get
You're
into a
doing
habit of trying to reward for what you do, aren't you creating self-depreciation, or what? Not self-depreciation, self-deprecation. You're hurting yourself in one way because you feel you did something right.
Yes, I mean, I can see it from that point.
Really weird thought, right?
Yeah. I mean, it makes you think about that one. Um, I know if I was to go to my friend and explain this to him, he'll be like, "Oh, I don't care."
Well, no, neither would I. Hey, I get done with the show, I get all my shit up, I get to go have my cigarette. So does rewarding behavior help? And I think about this as a parent too. If I let my kids have the TV because they finished their homework, am I helping, or am I just making them find a way to get through their homework faster so they can get to the TV? Are you still going to do as good a job if you're hurrying through the job to go get your cigarette?
That's a good point right there. That's a really good point.
You're creating an enforcement for the completion of the job, not to do the job the best you can. So by rewarding yourself for completing the job, you're emphasizing the completion of the job, not the correct completion of the job. You kind of... I try to look at these stupid tangential ways of things a little bit because people don't always think about some of this.
Well, look at your job. Are you doing your job because you want to, or are you doing your job because you want a paycheck?
These days, paycheck.
That's a good way to look at it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are you gotta do your job without getting paid?
Nope.
Or you gotta do your job to get paid? In the end, you're doing that job to get a reward, and that reward's your paycheck.
Which is why I don't think some people realize this, but the job of an at-home parent or an at-home person that takes care of a family, it is self-rewarding. You get done the tasks you get done. You feel good because certain things are done. If the room looks like shit, I don't feel good. When I vacuum, the room looks good, so I vacuum because the room looks better. I feel better about it. So I don't reward myself for vacuuming other than the accomplishment of the vacuuming. So in some aspects, with no reward, I feel better about the job. But then, hey, when I'm done with the show and I get it promoted live, I get to throw my shoes back on, run outside, and have a cigarette. So I'm kind of going to hurry through the post-production of the show as much as I can, and then I'll come back and fix it later if I have to. Does that make sense? And that's what I do.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense.
So offer that to your buddy at work who has a cigarette. Just be like, you know what? Does that cause you to want to hurry through finishing the job? When you got the last 3 bolts, are you making sure there wasn't anything else left that had to be put on? You know? Does that make you think that split-second thing where you're now in that, oh, crap, I'm almost done. I got 3 bolts left. I can have my cigarette. But there's a bolt somewhere on the other side on the floor that was forgotten. It fell off. And you didn't notice.
No. I don't know about I can point that out to multiple people. The way I do things is unless it's all done, all torch, nothing left. But there's certain steps and procedures I'll go through, like on an engine. Say I'm reassembling from overhaul. One major component would be like the head. Make sure the head's torqued down, bolted on. Make sure the camshel's put in, walker arms are down, bolted on. Everything can be set up in steps and procedures for each individual component. Yeah. And sometimes I've got to like stop and get away from it because I get pulled off the job to get put on something else.
Yep. Hey,
but I don't like to.
Most of us know how that goes.
Yeah, I don't like to stop a job unless it's finished because then I get preoccupied. I do something else. I forget where I'm at, or somebody or somebody else gets put on it and they don't know exactly where I'm at.
Right.
They see it's put together a certain way, and to them they associate that with, okay, if it's together like this, then I need to go through and do this, this, and this. When their way of putting something together might be different from mine.
Right. Or they may not know which bolt went where, and one might be a quarter of an inch longer, and they have to redo taking more time or screwing something up.
Exactly.
But that be an aside from the point we were having, that it's really hard to reward yourself for something when the reward you usually give yourself for doing something is potentially negative.
Yeah.
And the reward for doing something should be the completion of that item. Of course, I still want a paycheck for doing my job if I have a job, but I'm an at-home dad. My reward is the completion of the project. So I can offer that perspective.
Your reward seeing your child smile.
Yeah, or cry. Depends on the situation. With that, we are coming to the end of our show. Sparky, how did you like it being a first-time guest today?
Oh, it was unique. I've never been on a game show before, so it was fun.
It is. I try to keep it fun. I try to keep it entertaining. Malevolent Rider tries to keep it moving. So, with that, we're going to let everybody know, again, sometimes I say some things, sometimes I miss some things, but if you want to carry the conversation on somewhere, feel free to take my questions as you go. There are buttons, there are things to hit and slap, and I don't know where I put them. There's that key right there. Make sure you hit and slap all those buttons on your way out. Show your enjoyment or displeasement of the show. Share it with some friends. Let them know I'm still here and running it. With that, everybody, have a great day.